as we take the pulse of the black community.
What is the federal income tax? Who pays and why? Good evening. I'm Dr. James Haney, your host for this evening's edition of Black Pulse. In anticipation of the formal filing deadline of April the 15th, Black Pulse will talk with two business professionals concerning the purpose and philosophy behind the federal income tax legislation, the new tax law, and practical matters connected with preparing the income tax. Please stay tuned. And my first guest is Mr. Harvey Hoskin, who is a member of the Haney Company CPA firm located on Charlotte Avenue in Nashville, Tennessee. And let me welcome you to Black Pulse, Mr. Hoskins.
Thank you, Dr.
We mentioned in our introduction that the federal income tax deadline is the 15th of April. And we'd like to talk about the federal income tax, but more from a philosophical point of view during this first segment of the program. And we'd like to start off by having you to define and to give us some information in reference to the income tax, or taxes period.
Well, basically, income tax is very much what it says. It is a tax on income earned by individuals, businesses, estates, and other. As a matter of fact, taxes are even paid upon one's death in the form of estate taxes. Taxes are really nothing new. Taxes have been around even way back in the biblical days. Of course, as far as the U.S. is concerned, an income tax law came in effect in 1913. And I was just before I came out, took a look at one of the forms, the income tax returns that were prepared back in 1913. By the way, I might add that they were not really simple even back then, as one might think. But it basically is a tax on one's income.
Well, now, it seems to me that since it came into being in 1913, that there might have been some opposition. What was the general opposition to the very idea of a tax on income?
I think that even back then, the opposition is very much similar to what's taking place today. Most people realize the benefits that result from paying an income tax or paying taxes, period, but still it hurts, so to speak. People have a problem dealing with the fact of earning so much money and, in fact, having to turn over a certain percentage of it to the government that's utilized for various purposes. As it's often stated that we often work at least the first 4.5 months of the year just to pay our taxes, so most people do not look forward to that.
Well, now, what do you find as a general opposition when people come by to seek your service in reference to the income tax, those who might oppose it? I mean, what is the area of opposition?
The generally largest opposition is based on one's belief that our system of taxation is unfair. I think that has the largest impact on it, is one's belief that the taxes, there's discrimination within the tax law. They hear so many stories about the very, very wealthy not paying any tax, whereas these middle income, the low income individuals having to bear an unfair share of the taxes. And that is the general opposition. In addition to that, the complexity and confusion obviously just creates turmoil and opposition, as you say.
Well, it seems to me further that if the federal government is in the business of collecting taxes, how does this rate in terms of the state government's operation? Is there a state tax, or is there a general state tax, or what, in the state of Tennessee?
Well, as far as the state of Tennessee is concerned, you often hear people state from time to time that there is no state income tax in Tennessee. That is not altogether true. There is, in fact, an income tax in the state of Tennessee. I'm
curious about that because I've heard that before. Now, how would you explain that?
The tax in Tennessee is what they call the Hall income tax, and I believe it's identified after one of the senators or representatives who actually sponsored the bill to get that particular tax in. It's basically a tax that's paid on primarily interest and dividends. Many people are not aware that we do have a tax in Tennessee, but you are required to file a state income tax return each year if you have earnings in the form of interest and dividends. Now, what most people think in terms of income tax is the fact that we don't pay any taxes on our wages like we do in the federal sector, as there are in many states. As a matter of fact, just this week I have had clients who have moved into Tennessee, previously lived in other states, and I've had to prepare tax returns for the state of, for example, New York, Nebraska. So many states do have, in fact, the tax on income.
Let's talk about the administration of the federal system. How is that system administered?
Well, the administration of the system has been handed over through congressional law over to the Internal Revenue Service. Most people think, when they think of taxes, they think of Internal Revenue Service. When they get upset about the taxes, they think IRS. But primarily, the IRS is only the administrative arm of the laws that are handed over to them by Congress. They are charged with the responsibility of collecting the revenues, and then, of course, to go into the budget to handle the various things that our government decides on. So they have a very, very large organization that administers that system in the form of taxpayer service, which we get a lot of this year, in the form of the actual collection of taxes, and also in the form of audits.
So there's three major branches that would be concerned with the collection and the administration of the system, including the branch that audits.
Right.
Now, what are the chances in terms of being audited? Later on, we'll talk about the difference between the various forms of last year and this year, but what are the chances of being audited by the federal government under this system?
Well, if you want to think of it strictly from a number standpoint, over the past years, the IRS has actually audited less than 2% of the actual returns that have been filed. So you can sort of get a feel for what the odds are there. However, if you did certain things such as when involved in tax shelters, or you were involved in tax protest movements, or you happen to be lucky and get selected for what they call a TCMP examination, your chances of being audited increased substantially. So overall, if you're filing a return that is outside of the norm, you will certainly increase your chances of getting an audit.
When you say outside of the norm and being involved in various political systems and et cetera, are we suggesting by any means that the IRS or the Department of Revenue somehow has a list of people that they think that they might audit? Is that what we're suggesting here?
Well, that's not the case. Many people will state that I got on the IRS list and they come out to me every year. Now, there is such a thing as a follow-up examination. So, in fact, if you were audited last year and your return has those same type issues this year, you'll probably get audited again. So you get the feeling that you are on a list. But primarily what I was referring to as outside of the norm, without going into the complexities, they have a computer program is about what it amounts to that says for various levels of income, various family sizes, various occupations, income and various deductions should fall within these certain categories. Ranges, exactly.
And of course, if you go beyond those ranges...
Right. The chances are your return is going to be selected by the computer first of all, then generally individuals will sit down and what they call screen those actual returns and decide the ones that need to be examined.
For those persons who might be unfortunate